This is Scott Halford, and this is Your Brain Matters. Today what we're going to talk about are perceived threats in the brain. So when we came out of the cave thousands of years ago, everything was dangerous. So our architecture and our brain actually evolved to allow us to pay attention to those dangers. The dangers are no longer saber-toothed tigers and poisonous plants, they're now you. They're deadlines, they're emails, they're things that need to be done and that create kind of perceived threats. And so when we look at the kind of social threats in the brain, there are 5 of them. Dr. David Rock gives us a great model called SCARF, and it is status, certainty, autonomy, relatedness, and fairness. So we all know that we want and need some degree of status. We want to always feel like at certain times in our lives that we're in charge, that we're the boss, that we're on top. And so it's important to find some place where you can be the master of your universe, if you will, where you're the person with the most status in the room. Not all the time, but we need it somewhere, somehow in our lives. We know that certainty is enormous in the brain, that the brain hates uncertainty. It wants to know what's coming up next, what's around that corner. It was very scary when we didn't know what was coming around the corner. So creating certainty in our world is really an important part of the brain feeling in control. By the way, if we create too much certainty, we lose spontaneity. So it's a fine line that we want to cross. The third one is autonomy. Another factor of control is having choice. When we feel like we have choice, we feel more in control. When we give others choice, we give them some sense of control. If you're driving a car with someone and you are the person who is in the passenger seat and you know the best way to get someplace, and yet you let the other person who's driving choose which direction to go, you're giving them control as opposed to taking control and being that control freak in the car. So control is a big thing. Relatedness is huge. Feeling related to other people, being a part of a team, a group. When we're exiled from the team, when we're not invited to something we think we should be invited to, we feel rejection. So social relatedness is incredibly important to the brain because our brains actually are wired to interact with other human beings. It's how we survived. It's how we became dominant on this planet is by taking care of each other. And finally, fairness. When things feel fair, it's actually a reward in the brain. We have a toward state neurotransmitter, dopamine, that takes place in our brain when things feel really fair. When they feel unfair, we have a tendency to exact vengeance, and oftentimes disproportionate to what actually felt unfair. So we want to create situations that feel equitable, and want to make sure that we're paying attention to all of the people's needs in our organization, and not just a select few. That feels unfair. So the SCARF model gives us an idea about managing threats and how important it is to pay attention to those every day, because our brains are scanning the environment and looking for those dangerous things. This is Scott Halford, and this is Your Brain Matters.